Shores by Fleet Foxes is our next album. Let's go into that.
So it is 15 songs, 54 minutes long, and Fleet Foxes are one of my favorite bands. I'm not one who likes folk. I'm not one who really likes that Mumford & Sons style of music, except for Fleet Foxes, because they're the only ones who can do it right. Father John Misty also does it right, but he was a member of Fleet Foxes for about 4 or 5 years. He did the first 2 albums. And I think their last album was done a few years ago, Crack Up, which is 2017, which had a lot of different sounds in there, a lot more like airiness and stuff, and there was some very good tracks in it, and the other ones are kind of forgettable. So when they released that, I was a little disappointed in some of it. But this album, top to bottom, is fucking really good. It's probably their most complete work since their self-titled debut album. Because Fleet Foxes have an interesting thing where they're from Seattle, and they like make this folksy style music, but it's more like Americana folksy without being pretentious or trying to be pretenders. They're like really live that style of life and everything. And the lead vocalist, I can't think of his name. I can see his face. Has an amazing voice and loves to use it. And he actually was quoted earlier this week that when they did the surprise album, that he said, "You can fake guitar solos, but you cannot fake having a good voice," which I think is very prevalent, especially in their music, because there's like guitars, there's percussion, everything like kind of normal instruments, but they make it sound like a whole group. They make it sound unison and very together, and there's no one person or one band member outshining the other. It's a whole conglomerate of people joining up.
Yeah.
Which is good.
Singer-songwriter Robin Pecknold.
Pecknold, there we go. I was like, Peck something.
Yeah.
Anyways, it starts with Waiting in Waist High Water, which is kind of a slow 2-minute opener track into it. And then it gets into Sunblind, which is, oh my God, I really, really enjoyed this track. I listened to it a couple of times, where it's like this really good alternative Americana-ish song. Lana Del Rey, this is how you fucking make an Americana album. And it's just, you feel like it's a really good, like you're chilling, like literally walking down the ocean, or you're chilling on a long drive or something, top down. Perfect song for that.
You feel the emotion within the chords and the strumming, which carries out within the percussion. And like you're saying, every aspect of it, including the vocals, come together to provide that effect and provide that sound, which goes into what was being said earlier about how you can't really fake that. You really have to craft that and put it together. Down Believe After Can I Believe You is Jarrah, which I think is a really good song. Nice ballad.
I love the guitar work in Jarrah. So that's something that they experimented a little bit more with this album, because usually their guitars are really like just undertones and just normal, like just kind of strumming in the background, little things, except like Sun It Rises on their first album. But for Jarrah, you can hear it in the background where there's like little guitars looping a little bit more. It's a little more prevalent into it, but it's not outshining anything. And there's a little cool vocal effect throughout the thing too. But it is a ballad. I could see that. It's good. And then after Jarrah, it goes into Featherweight, which is like this more airiest song, which is what they're kind of known for in their regard. So their first 4 songs are definitely different than what they've done before, for sure. It's way more, it's not fast-paced, but it's fast-paced for Fleet Foxes.
I feel like it's necessarily like a little fast-paced for Fleet Foxes, but also has punchier percussion, and it's like a little bit almost like louder almost in that way to make it more distinct.
After Featherweight, you get to A Long Way Into the Past, which I really like the
A Long Way Past the Past.
Oh, sorry, A Long Way Past the Past, if I could not have dyslexia.
No worries. We should just do like vocally speaking exercises like they do right before stage acting.
Yeah, it'd be
like
great if we get some sponsors for Audioface, go Squarespace or some random shit, then sure.
Yeah, donate to our Patreon so we can get a vocal coach dedicated to Audioface. That's our priority. Not social media, not editing. We'll definitely get a vocal coach.
Oh Lord. Anyways, after you have 4 Week or 2, which is a decent song, you get into Maestranza. I don't know how to say this.
Yeah, Maestranza, something like that.
This is where Peckenhold's voice shines. This is where you finally get to hear, like, because Fleet Foxes usually his voice like is pretty prevalent in it, but for the first half of the album it's not at all. But that was the first song where it's like boom in your voice, and it is gorgeous song. Really like it. Top to bottom, just beautiful where you have it out. The guitar, the drums, everything. It's just fantastic. Again, this is something that I'm very glad what that Fleet Foxes have done because usually a lot of their songs, some of it can be filler-ish stuff where a lot of it's just like really airy and lucid style of music, but this from top to bottom, it's way more substance into it. Each song has a meaning. There's nothing that's skipped. There's nothing that's filler at all within the album, which is good. After that, you got Young Man's Game, which is now you have 3 vocalists all together doing in harmony and
wow,
in unison,
I didn't even know
and
that.
it is very, very good. Right after Mestranza too. It's yeah.
Quiet Air, Giulia is a little bit down after that, and I really love the transition that goes within that. It reminds me of one of my favorite transitions next to, I think there's a transition on Cosmogramma by Flying Lotus that's like Do the Astral Plane or something like that. That's also just a very pleasing transition. The songs are completely different. I'm not comparing the songs by any means, but it just really goes in together where you have like a really kind of hype beginning first part, and then the second part is chiller, but somehow keeps that pace. And yeah, you just get the best of it. It transcends Americana and folk at that point. It seems like you're using those building blocks, you're using those tools, but it's something bigger. It's something a lot more. Not that folk or Americana is bad. We're very clear that we're just like not necessarily favorable to these certain genres in a general sense. But it just adds a lot more variety and flavor
substance
to this. Yes, adds substance.
And it almost feels like early Coldplay style, where it's like, or like Weird Fishes, almost where it just keeps building and building and building, stops, and then builds right back up. That's with Quiet Air. It's awesome. Going to the Sun Road right after that that's when it like the album will slow down a little bit right there, but it's not a bad thing because it experiments a little bit with some like electronica stuff in there, which I've never heard them use before at all, but it's not out of place.
Yeah.
And it has like a female vocalist in the background going on kind of towards the end, and you have some other things that go on to where I'm like, well, they actually started to experiment a little bit there, which is awesome too. After that, you have Themia, which is just, that's old Fleet Foxes for sure. That's like their first album where it's just short 2 minutes, really slow, and just vocals and a little bit of guitar work, which is cool, a little bit of a callback into it, but it doesn't seem out of place, which is good. Because you can easily, put something older-ish sounding into an album and then just be like, it doesn't fit within there, but it does. And the last 2 songs, Creating a Mother, Creating a Woman, is good. It kind of goes back and forth between slowing down, speeding up, speeding up, and then Shore is beautiful piano in the beginning. Yeah. Really like it as an ending track. This is definitely Fleet Fox's most complete work. It is one of my favorite albums so far of the year. It's very, very good. I'm surprised though. I actually didn't expect this from them. I thought that they were gonna do more of their stuff where they're almost like Tori and Ma, where Tori and Ma, I'll like half the album. Half the album is amazing. The other half is kind of wishy-washy, which is a lot of stuff. That's my one issue I have with the fuckboy Ma, as I like to call him. But with this for Fleet Foxes, just top to bottom, every song works. Everything is, there's no filler at all. You can, again, put it into shuffle and it still is cohesive, which is extremely hard to do. And it's a great album.
Yeah, I think the part where you're getting at the end where a song speeds up, a song slows down, a song speeds up, a song slows down, especially for something like Fleet Foxes where you're based in such a kind of genre that plays a lot with speed for the really setting the tone of what the song is going to be like, and really for one of the few ways to differentiate some of the songs.
Yes.
I think they should have gone in for a smoother landing, that kind of up, down kind of thing, made an otherwise generally cohesive album feel like it stuttered near the end, and ruin what otherwise could have been just like one of those phenomenal endings that I just like put up on a pedestal as an award somewhere. The endings are fine. They kind of like sort of, I guess if I could metaphorically describe this album, it's the waves' behavior at a day at the beach. You have
That's
like
a
high
good
tide and low
explanation,
tide,
yeah.
and like it begins with the tide coming in and the water coming in and the waves kind of doing their daily sort of machinations and stuff like that, and then once the day sort of ends, it sort of percolates out. And so you do get that explanation for tide goes in, tide goes out. You can't explain that. But I think that really does get the metaphor of shore, even if not fully in the lyrics and the music and the sound. Maybe it's supposed to give you that visceral feeling of being at the beach, which I'm totally vibing with. I totally like it. It's even more of like an autumnal beach cover. It seems like a late summer, fall. So nice coming out. I'm not necessarily super partial to Fleet Foxes or like them particularly that much or seek them out. This is a pretty solid album, I'd say. Very good. If you say it's like one of their better ones that feels most cohesive to the project of Fleet Foxes, I would definitely believe you and I would definitely understand you with that. And I'd love for them to continue learning and crafting off of that, maybe take a break and also play with some of their more experimental things. Be like The Neighborhood and release some random like 20-minute experimental shit. Just like have some fun. But it's a very hard thing to have the kind of discography that you do with Fleet Foxes, where you're like not old, but you're like now in that middle age kind of a band, usually 10 to 15 years.
And this is where like their sweet spot hits right now too, because they've had 3 of their members have been together for like 20 plus years or so. They've been together forever, and they actually took some breaks when Robin Peckenhold went to finish his music degree. So they took some breaks. That's when Father John Misty left the band and then started his own solo project. And when he left, that's when I didn't really like their latest album that much, because I thought he was like one of the biggest parts, because you could also hear his voice and they would go back and forth. But then this to me is like, wow, okay, they came back and just really nailed it out of the park. So
that's awesome. Love it. Arbitrary scale this week, as we often, or actually no, this is the arbitrary scale we changed every week, so not very often. But we are looking to sports, as we sometimes do, and we are looking to teams. And so these are just the worst performing teams in the NBA who have gotten, as a franchise, fewer points on the board than LeBron James. As far as finals go,
this is the Toronto Raptors, because they just won a final, but they've barely been to the finals, and Canada finally got a ship randomly. Yeah. They got a ship. The NBA got a ship like more recently than a Canadian team has won the Stanley Cup. And will for a long time.
So Canada won in the NBA faster than they won in hockey.
Yeah, because they haven't won last team to win a Stanley Cup in Canada was in the 90s.
That's pretty
was the Montreal Canadiens, when Patrick Roy left and said, "I'm never playing for you again."
That's pretty wild.
Yeah.
I'm going with the Washington Wizards. The Gizzards, they seem to be they seem to always have like team names after them. You don't have to call them the Washington basketball team, so at least that's a start. But they don't win shit. That's the problem. They're in movies. They have like Magic Johnson and all the stories, but like you don't win shit.
So you can only do so much when you don't win shit.
Like it's DC. DC should have a good basketball team. I totally love the political sport to have, where basketball in DC instead of baseball, because then you wouldn't have like people like Baseball Crank on Twitter. But then again, that's great content to make fun of, so at least there's that. But baseball is such a boring like political sport in that way, where like of course the people who are like number crunchers really would love to see like the analytical sort of like slower moving aspect of baseball. But basketball would be.
I mean, they have a fantastic hockey team with DC. Well, the Capitals won 2 years ago. Fuck Capitals, but like I'll admit, they're a great
it's entertaining hockey to watch.
It's very entertaining hockey to watch. Fuck them, but at least they win shit.
Fuck them.